This podcast is sponsored by valleygivesback.org.
For hundreds of years we brought you the news. Rid of the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives.
Hey everybody, welcome to Navel Gazing the Valley Indie Podcast. My name is Eugene Driscoll. Before we get to the program, I want to read a message from this podcast sponsor, valleygivesback.org. While giving back is always in season, now is a great time to plan your gift. Name a Valley nonprofit in your estate plan and create a legacy that tells future generations what mattered to you. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Your action will inspire others to make a difference in their own way. Remember the Valley. Ask your accountant, financial planner, or attorney about plan giving options. Plan now, give later, impact tomorrow. Learn more at valleygivesback.org. Sorry for flubbing that a little bit. We're live and I'm a little rusty. My guest today is Andrew Baklik, the Chief of Staff for Derby Mayor Rich Dziekan. Welcome back, Andrew.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you for having me.
So I thought we would just get right into it. Mayor Dziekan announced through a prepared statement on Monday, we're recording this on Wednesday, October 14th, that he had tested positive for COVID-19. So first and foremost, best wishes to the mayor, and I hope for a speedy recovery. I think I was impressed by the amount of people on social media sending encouraging messages to the mayor. And I think on a personal note, it also made me think about all the people who work in Derby City Hall. And it must have been a little, at least uneasy the last few days as the city is trying to get through this, as is the country and the world, as this pandemic just sort of drags on. And we're all sick of it. Like, I'm sick of everything. I'm sick of the conflict over it. I'm sick of the virus itself. I'm sick about being a worried parent all the time. So it just seems to be never ending. But first thing I'll ask, Andrew, how's the mayor doing? I know he had said he had cold-like symptoms. I emailed him yesterday. He emailed right back. How's Mayor Dziekan doing?
So Mayor Dziekan is at home and he is recovering. And as you said, he's got kind of cold-like symptoms. I think probably the most noticeable symptom is that when he tries to talk too much, he starts to cough. So we've been trying to limit him to emails and correspondence that way. He has participated in a couple conference calls and Zoom calls over the last couple of days with staff. And he's actually on one right now for the Greater Bridgeport MPO meeting that he's participating in. So, again, I think he's just trying to kind of conserve his strength and certainly his voice. But for the most part, he's got a cold is really what it comes down to.
And then City Hall was closed on Tuesday for a phrase we all know now, a deep clean. It was disinfected. Contact tracing has been going on, and then the decision was made late Tuesday to keep City Hall closed to the public and employees for another day. Today on Wednesday. Last I had checked in with Derby, there was a suspected case, but there was people were waiting for the results. Is there any more positive tests at this point?
So, unfortunately, we did have one more test come back positive of staff. We are awaiting results of a few others who had known contact with the mayor last week. My test result, I was tested yesterday morning. My test result came back negative this morning. But we have one other individual whose result we're awaiting, and that was kind of the genesis of closing today as well, was to kind of keep the staff protected and until we kind of know the full scope of this thing. But as of right now, we have no reason to believe that other than the mayor and the one other staff member, that anybody else has any any reason to worry. We have those two individuals were both symptomatic, the mayor and this other person. So no one else has any symptoms, and no one else really had close contact with the mayor or the other individual, other than the one person who's still awaiting a test result, which we expect any time now, actually.
Okay, so two people have tested positive in City Hall, and you're awaiting the result for a third test. And that person is suspected of, as well?
No, that person is not suspected. Just that person had contact with both individuals who have tested positive, including the mayor. So,
gotcha. Okay, yeah. And
similar to. Go ahead.
How does it work? Because I know, one thing here, like Derby City Hall, it's not like there's hundreds and hundreds of employees in there. It's a small business to some extent, so there's no HR department. If this was at a private business, you might have somebody at least who's they could prepare, and it's their job to deal with something like this. Like who decides who gets tested now? How does that all work, and who sort of handles that, given the fact that there's really no HR department in City Hall?
Well, that really, we've been working, luckily, because of our status, I guess, as a public entity. We had direct contact with not only Restaurant Occupational Medicine, but also the health department. So they really kind of help spearhead those efforts and help us make those decisions. There is certainly, to your point, no one on staff who's not only an HR professional, but neither is there a medical professional. So we've been really lucky to have the guidance of folks who are, in the medical world. So essentially what it comes down to is depending upon your contact and your level of contact with a known positive case, you fall into a different category. So I'm a good example, and I'll use myself because there's no HIPAA involved if I'm speaking about myself. So, and for those that don't know what HIPAA is, there's privacy rules as it relates to medical disclosure of medical information. So I tested yesterday just because I was with these two individuals last week in not super close contact, but certainly enough that I wanted peace of mind for not only myself, but also my friends and family and people that I've known to be around since I was around the mayor. Came back negative, but because of my level of exposure to these two individuals, the health department's recommendation is that I continue to self-monitor and quarantine for 14 days after my point of potential exposure. So that will put me at next Thursday before I can go back to City Hall comfortably, and as long as I don't exhibit any symptoms in the meantime. So that's kind of a good example of a situation where maybe you think, oh, negative test, I can go back. And trust me, I would love to go back and be able to work in my office comfortably, but working from home and keeping everybody else safe and having that peace of mind is a responsible thing to do, and the thing we would insist upon for anybody else that falls into a similar category.
And if an employee in City Hall wasn't deemed to have been in close contact with anybody who might have contracted COVID, can that employee go and get tested as well? Is that and is that a free thing? Can they do it use their city insurance policy, or do they have to be deemed having had close contact first?
We offered that to the entire employee base at City Hall. We certainly weren't going to do just a one blanket test because, as you pointed out, we really do have a small staff, and really with people being kind of relegated to their own individual areas and us, wearing masks when we're not in our own individual areas. So really the concern was the people who were in close contact with the mayor and this other individual. So we did have a couple other people submit for testing today based on even just passing contact. So those people, again, will be off the board, at least pending their results, particularly those people that did not have a known exposure or close contact, let's say like myself. So that's, part of the reason why we kept the doors closed today. And to be fair, there is limited staff in the building today. If people needed to get service via the phone or email, they certainly can. I believe all the offices are staffed with at least one individual because there was, again, such a small number of people who were actually known to be in close contact that we kind of made that judgment call, especially knowing that the building was completely sanitized head to toe. yesterday, and some great effort by our facilities manager there, Pat Lebrandi. Did spend some extra time there yesterday and had some extra equipment on site to be able to really give it a good deep clean, as you said.
And in terms of the Naugatuck Valley Health District, I know, or I assume that I know they're involved in contact tracing, and you're in contact with them, I assume, quite often because they're the ones we're getting all our data from. I get a list every day, a report every day from the Naugatuck Valley Health District, and mainly it'll list new cases, and you can see where the numbers are going. There was something like 30 and change cases since Friday, and then last week the area here picked up another 30 cases. But there's no real explanation of, okay, is this what do these numbers mean? Are we in an uptick? It feels like we're in a slight uptick. I know the state has gone to 2.4% in terms of its positivity rate, which is above the 0.8 or 0.9 it was over the summer. What are you hearing on the government end in terms of COVID infections?
So from what I'm hearing, and again, to your point, we're in pretty regular contact with Naugatuck Valley Health. We do have a Derby-specific conference call with Naugatuck Valley Health every Tuesday morning, just to kind of talk Derby-specific things, and we've been doing that since March. So really, I think that's kept us ahead of the curve in so many ways. But the issue with the uptick is not only do you have the kids back in schools, which I think, as you know, there's been a limited number of positive tests come through our Board of Education, but also
two since
so far two.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
So that's okay. But also, it sounds like allegorically, what I'm hearing is that the onset of youth sports has really kind of caused some of this extra little bump that we're seeing in cases, because I don't know what exactly the reason is for that, other than the fact that, kids are getting together again, and there's coaches and there's parents and there's people who maybe think they're following all the guidelines and doing the right things, but you have face-to-face football practice, baseball practice, even cross-country runners running next to one another and talking. I think what we're seeing is a slight uptick that definitely that factors in. So I know that's kind of a hot-button issue, and as a former athlete, it kind of pains me to say that it's unfortunate that I think some of these kids are missing out and are probably going to miss out on more sporting events if this is the trend, because I think it's such an important part of your development as a young adult and a young person. But that seems to be part of the genesis of this. And I noticed just in my own personal life through social media, a lot of people were getting together the last couple of weekends. It's like the end of summer, beginning of fall, there's pumpkin picking, there's all these other things. So, I think people kind of dropped their guard a little bit over the last week or two. Certainly from my own personal experience, that's what I'm seeing. But definitely the youth sports is something I think that's playing a factor,
and
playing a role.
Governor Lamont and the state health department, the scientists and all those eggheads, they were saying, I guess yesterday, that the uptick in places like Norwich and New London were driven by small social gatherings that people have been having, not necessarily just the fact that colleges and schools are back in session. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, I guess on if there is a bright side to this. Actually, I don't know if there is one. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm just anticipating someone getting angry because we're talking about COVID.
I know, well, that's it. No matter what you say, you're wrong.
Right. No matter what you say, someone's gonna get offended. Either you're fear mongering or you're not saying enough. But I mean, but that's what we're dealing with here. And hey, it's easy to go on social media and generalize. But you're literally working with it in City Hall, so it's something that's happening. So, all right. Is there anything else you wanted to add about COVID-19? I appreciate you talking about that a little bit. No, to your point, I think that people can get easily triggered from one side of the fence to the other. A lot of people don't think this thing is real. I certainly have been feeling healthy, but I can tell you this, over the last 24 hours awaiting my test results, and the fear that
as a asymptomatic person that I could have been positive and could have been positive this past weekend around my family or anybody else. That was the thing that really bothered me.
Yeah.
But I have had close personal friends who have lost upwards of 30 and 35 pounds on this. I do know people who have died from this. So anybody that says, oh, it's not real, I don't know anybody, like I know people who have had it. And, you got to respect it. And whether you believe in all the hype and what's going to protect you and what's not going to protect you and how you should be behaving, I believe that's up to you to make your own determination. But I can tell you that based on my experience over this last week and the ripple effect that has been caused by one and now two people that we work with every day having it, you have to respect it. Whether you believe it or not, you have to respect the possible outcomes and whatever the fallout can be. So that's my message. And the only other thing I heard early on in the process that I think is a good practice if you're going out in public, just assume everybody's got this thing. Whether you believe it in it or not, just behave like people you encounter that you don't know and you don't know what their behavior is on a day-to-day. Just assume they have it, which means you should be wearing masks. You shouldn't be face-to-face for long periods of time. And, washing your hands, don't touch your face, all the things that we've all been drilled on for the last, 7-8 months. I think that's the best way to behave.
Yeah, we still got to stick to that. I'm a little nervous myself about Halloween's coming up, and as a father of two, I was breaking the news to my kids in the car ride home that, guess what, kids, you're not going trick-or-treating. And
it's going to be like Easter. We're going to have Easter egg hunt in the backyard.
My son was sort of okay with it. I'm like, Jack, come on, look at some of our neighbors on Facebook. Look what they're saying about this. We're not going to their house. Are you kidding me? So, but my daughter was like beside herself. But yeah, it's just such a weird time. I think I'm going to put a table outside and, the kids could still dress up, but I'm going to have like individual bags of candy that if people come by, they can grab. But I'm not going to do the door-to-door thing because it's like I'm surrounded by a lot of senior citizens too. If one of my kids have it, and they're totally fine because they're in school. They've been totally in school since September 1st. Yeah, I mean, you think about knocking on a neighbor's door who answers to be polite, and who wants to take that risk? It's not worth it, in my opinion. But all right, now
I agree.
We'll definitely get hate now.
Well, the only thing is, I think if you do send your kids out, like a good costume idea is like the bubble boy. Like you can be bubble boy and you're protected.
Right? Yeah. My daughter there's that whole that phrase yeet, which I guess means a lot of. She wants to yeet the candy, which according to her means throw it to people when they come to the door. Just throw it at them. She's dead set on.
Yeah, yeet, trash. I don't know all the verbiage. I don't have a kid, so I can't speak to that. But I do hear that word. So hopefully it's not a bad word and we just swear on it.
I don't know. Who knows what I just said? But all right. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you, Andrew, and this was sort of what sparked my idea to send you an email and say, hey, would you come on for a podcast with no prep? But I wrote the story based on a alderman meeting from last week where basically the city of Derby took possession of this eyesore. I mean, this thing was an eyesore. Maybe I'm editorializing here, but it's on Minerva Street, right? It's on Caroline and Minerva. It's right across. If you go out like the back entrance, the plaza on the green, on the Minerva Street side, it's essentially right across the street. And I know that because when I would leave that plaza, of course, after going to like Bar None or whatever, I can't remember the name of it, Retro. I would take a picture of it with my cell phone and put it on Instagram because it just looked that bad going back to like 2014 or so. And the city struggled with it at a lot of alderman meetings trying to get something done. It was behind in taxes. It was supposed to be this. It was supposed to be that. Contamination. It's a little microcosm of how difficult it can be to get a property cleaned up, sold back on the tax rolls in Derby and Ansonia because of it's just much more complicated than it is other places because of the industrial history of a lot of our downtown. So I just thought we would talk about that a little bit because a resident, or I don't know if this is a resident, but just somebody in the Facebook group where I posted it made the comment. This is first name Gabe. I'm not using his last name because I didn't say I would be reading this, but he said it would be great to see some redevelopment focused on bringing in businesses. From my understanding, this is proposed as more housing. I believe it's apartments. Small businesses are the lifeblood of a community and would increase revenue with little increase in cost of services. Which is, that's he's absolutely correct. But I guess my question to you, Mr. Baklik, as one of the people who has now been assigned to this negotiating committee to the end goal being to get this property out of Derby's hands and into a developer's hands so it can be used in some fashion. How much control do you have, and who decides whether it's going to be apartments or an Apple store? Or iPad store? How does that work?
Sure. So first of all, it's a very good observation by Gabe on social media. I can say that the one thing I've learned, or one of the things I've learned, I should say, over the last 3 years is related to development, because we all want the same thing. I mean, we had all these charrettes for years talking about what everybody wants to see downtown, and everybody thinks Norman Rockwell, everybody thinks Mayberry, everybody thinks businesses, and if we can do that without residences, awesome, because to the point, we don't have any strain on the schools with additional bodies or emergency services or any other strain on the sewer system or whatever other hot button issue that people complain about when there's new residential. I can tell you this unequivocally, 100%. There is no developer right now who is going to come in and just do commercial development in Derby. It's going to be either strictly residential to try to build up our housing base and get the type of residences here that we all want to see in 2020, or best case scenario, a mixed-use development with a residential component combined with some commercial and retail space. But as everyone can see what's happening nationally right now, there is no more big office space. There are no big box stores popping up. Number one, we don't want certain parts of that. But number two, this is a new era here, and coronavirus has left a lot of people feeling even more uncertain. So I think if we can up our housing stock especially with 1-bedroom and studio apartments, which is what this particular project we're talking about consists of, you're going to have people that want to take advantage of increased train service on the Waterbury branch line and being able to get down to Fairfield County and New York City to work. You're going to have millennials who want to patronize the restaurants and services in the area. And then maybe once you have those things, you can attract some more commercial-based development. But really, it's a pretty clear order of operations for us here. We need to kind of build up the residential stock, and you've already got the approved project on Factory Street with 218 units. You've got Life Touch and 90 Main Street about to head in for a residential a mixed-use project. You've got this project that could represent about 76 residential units. Now, you get all that assembled in a concentrated area downtown, and then we can start talking about, let's get an Apple store. Let's get a doctor's office. Let's get a hotel and some banquet space or large meeting room space. Those things all will come, but you have to up the residential base, and as a homeowner here, a property owner here, and you are one as well, Eugene, it's tough to put everything that we've been putting on the backs of our residential tax base for the last 20 years as we await the always promised development. So, trust me, that's what we work on every day. And if we didn't have to stop to work on coronavirus protocols and all the other crazy things we have to work on day to day, this would be all we work on every day. Unfortunately, based on our situation, get to work on it about 20% of the time. So
I was just thinking, this is just the conversation we're having is odd because it goes from COVID-19 to this. It's just such an insane time. But it made me think when I saw that comment, and it seems like there's a chicken and egg thing that always happens, and it's been the debate in Derby for as long as I've been up here, for whatever, 11 as a reporter and 15 as just somebody who's living here. There's always that debate. Well, if somebody proposes residential, then they say someone will say, well, businesses, and then somebody will say businesses, and they want residential. It seems like the wins right now, the market, the developers And the investors, the people with the money, the owners are ultimately the ones who have the greatest say as to what goes where. And it seems like the market right now, the free market is definitely in Derby leaning towards residential. Chicken and egg, they're choosing residential here to build that up first. So that just seems to be the way it is. The other thing is, I mean, this particular property, it's just, there's just a lot to it. Just this one small single property, all the different agencies that have been involved in it. It's not, it's anything. There's always special cases in Derby and Sonia, it seems. But you had mentioned the project that is down the road on the south side of Main Street there. We've got the Life Touch one, and then behind it is the former lumber company, and now it was Beretta Landscaping. What's the status of that project? Because that's a big one, and that's mixed use. That's residential with commercial on the bottom. Sure. What's the latest on that? Because when are they going to break ground?
Exactly, and listen, that's a little inside baseball, but I'm happy to certainly update you because I know they say it's going to be one of those things. Oh, we've been hearing about this for 50 years. So where that stands is we're in regular contact with those folks, with the developers there, the Derby Downtown Group, and the ball is really in the city's court. And the ball is in the city's court because one of the contingencies with that development is the removal of the scrapyard operation that is adjacent. So the city is currently in negotiations with the scrapyard owner, and we are attempting to get to a point where we're both comfortable with a price for that property. Once that happens and the city is in control of the scrapyard and can give the developers on Factory Street some certainty as to a timetable for that, they will then begin their demo, their environmental remediation of the site, and the subsequent construction. The goal for them is to start construction concurrent with the Route 34 widening project and then finish at the same time that roadway project finishes. So we're looking at likely, with a positive time frame to completion, 2 to 3 years from this day, that they're done with that. But really the ball is in the city's court to figure out the scrapyard situation, and we're working with the state on that, as we do have a $5 million grant, some of which has been earmarked for property acquisition. So
that was going to be my next question, because I've sat through Derby Tax Board meetings where they're talking about counting pencils because the city doesn't have any extra money. So how are you going to buy that? You're saying there's some state grant money available that you may be able to purchase. Would it be an eminent domain type deal? We hope to not have to. We hope to not have to go that route. We hope we can reach just a fair negotiation. Through fair negotiation, we can reach a price with the property owner, and we're hoping not to have to go that route. But I think both sides are amenable to going that route. If we cannot establish a value, we will allow the courts to establish the value and just go that route. So it's inside baseball, confusing stuff, and having been dealing with this for the last 3-4 months, almost every day. That's the Cliff Notes version of it. That the average person who's not involved in the city business every day will understand, I think, what the delay has been. But that's essentially it, and we're hoping that that's the first domino to fall. Privately owned land. The Life Touch building, that was on privately owned land. Those folks are going to do what their proposal is through planning and zoning, as long as it meets and is consistent with our plan of development in the city. And then we, as staff, can really start focusing on things like our 14 acres between the Derby Shelton Bridge and Factory Street, and how we're going to market that, as well as the Opera House, the parking garage. Who knows if the courthouse is going to open back up? Yeah, that courthouse is making me nervous, because I know that the state has tried to